Dr. Amanda Foster stood at the main window of Beacon Station, watching the stars shine in the darkness of space. She had been running this medical station for 7 years now. It was not the biggest station in the galaxy, but it was special. Beacon Station was a place where anyone could come for help, no matter what planet they came from or what side of a war they fought on. The station floated at the edge of known space, far from the big cities and busy trade routes. This made it perfect for people who needed help, but could not go to regular hospitals. Pirates with laser burns, traders hurt in accidents, and refugees fleeing from wars all came to Beacon Station. Amanda and her team treated them all the same way. Amanda was proud of this work. She had taken an oath as a doctor to help anyone who needed it. The station's rules were simple. If you came asking for medical help, you would get it. No questions about your past, no checking if you could pay, no asking which side you fought for in whatever war was happening that week. The morning started like any other. Amanda was checking the supply reports when her assistant, Nurse Kelly Brown, rushed into her office. Kelly looked worried, and her face was pale. "Dr. Foster, you need to see this," Kelly said, her voice shaking a little. Amanda followed Kelly to the main control room. Chief Medical Officer Ben Carter was there, staring at a screen that showed the space around their station. On the screen was a dot moving toward them. It was still far away, but the computer was already telling them what kind of ship it was. "It's a human warship," Ben said quietly. "A big one." Amanda felt her heart beat faster. Everyone in the galaxy knew about human warships. They were the most feared ships in space. The humans had been fighting wars across the galaxy for years, and they always won. Other species told scary stories about human soldiers who never gave up, who fought like wild animals, and who showed no mercy to anyone who got in their way. Security Chief Lisa Murphy came running into the control room. She had been a soldier before she came to work at the station, and she knew about military ships. "That's a Terran battle cruiser," Lisa said, looking at the screen. "It's armed with enough weapons to destroy a small moon." "What do they want with you?" The ship was getting closer now. Amanda could see it more clearly on the screen. It was huge and dark, with scars all over its metal hull. The scars came from many battles, and they made the ship look even more frightening. "Maybe they will just fly past us," Kelly said hopefully. But then the communication system started beeping. Someone from the human ship was trying to talk to them. Amanda took a deep breath and pressed the button to answer. "Beacon Station, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the Terran Vessel Defender," said a man's voice. The voice was calm but serious. "We have wounded people on board who need medical help. We request permission to dock." Amanda looked at her team. Ben was shaking his head. "We can't let them dock here," he whispered. "What if they take over the station? What if they hurt our patients?" Lisa agreed with Ben. "Our security team is only 5 people. We have no weapons that could stop a human warship. If they want to take the station, there's nothing we can do to stop them." Amanda understood their fears. The stories about humans were terrible. They said humans were cold and cruel, that they cared only about winning wars and nothing about the people who got hurt. They said humans would kill anyone who got in their way, even doctors and nurses. But Amanda also remembered her oath. She had promised to help anyone who needed medical care. The station's charter was clear about this rule. It did not say, "Help anyone except humans," or "Help anyone except people you are afraid of." It said, "Help anyone." "Dr. Foster," the voice from the ship said again, "we have civilians on board who are badly hurt. Some of them are children. They will die if they don't get help soon." Amanda closed her eyes and thought about this. If she said no, people would die. It did not matter if they were humans or aliens or her worst enemies. If she let people die when she could save them, she would not be a doctor anymore. She would just be someone who broke her promises when things got scary. "This is a medical station," she said to her team. "We help people who need help. That's what we do. It's what we've always done." Ben looked upset. "But Amanda, what if the stories are true? What if they're not really here for medical help?" Amanda walked to the communication controls. Her hands were shaking a little, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "Captain Morrison, this is Dr. Amanda Foster. You have permission to dock at Bay 3. We'll have medical teams ready to help your wounded." There was a pause, then the captain's voice came back. "Thank you, Doctor. We'll be there in 20 minutes. Amanda turned off the communication system and looked at her team. They all looked scared, but they also looked determined. They were doctors and nurses and medical workers. This was their job, even when it was scary. "Kelly, get the emergency medical teams ready," Amanda said. "Ben, prepare the trauma center for multiple patients. Lisa, have your security team ready, but tell them to stay calm. We're going to treat these people like we treat everyone else." As the human warship got closer, Amanda watched it through the window. It was the biggest, most frightening ship she had ever seen. But inside that ship were wounded people who needed help. That was all that mattered. The ship docked with a loud clang that shook the whole station. Through the window, Amanda could see human soldiers in their battle armor walking toward the station's entrance. They looked exactly like the monsters from the scary stories, tall and strong and covered in weapons. But then Amanda noticed something strange. The soldiers were carrying stretchers. They were moving slowly and carefully, like they were worried about hurting the people on the stretchers. This was not how monsters were supposed to act. "They're coming aboard," Lisa said through the communication. Amanda took a deep breath and walked toward the docking bay. She was about to meet the most feared warriors in the galaxy. She had no idea that this meeting would change everything she thought she knew about humans, about war, and about what it really meant to be brave. The doors to the docking bay opened with a soft hiss. Amanda stood there with her medical team, ready to see the terrible human warriors she had heard so many stories about. What she saw instead made her stop and stare. The first person through the door was Captain Jake Morrison. He was a big man with gray hair and lines around his eyes. He looked tired and worried, not angry or mean. His uniform was dirty and torn in places, and there was dried blood on his hands. But when he saw Amanda, he stopped and gave her a respectful nod. "Dr. Foster," he said, "thank you for letting us dock. I know our reputation makes people nervous." Behind the captain came his crew, and that was when Amanda saw something that made no sense at all. The human soldiers were carrying wounded people on stretchers, just like she had seen through the window. But these wounded people were not all human. Amanda watched a human soldier carefully carry a stretcher that held a small Zalari child. The child's blue skin was pale, and one of her forearms was badly hurt. The human soldier was talking to the child in a soft voice, trying to keep her calm. He was speaking in the Zalari language, which was very hard for humans to learn. Another human soldier walked past, carrying a wounded Krex adult. A Krex was one of the insect-like species that had been fighting humans for years. His shell was cracked and bleeding, and he should have been afraid of the human carrying him. But instead, he was holding the soldier's hand like a scared child holds his mother's hand. Amanda felt confused and amazed. These were supposed to be the most feared warriors in the galaxy, but they were acting like the gentlest nurses in her hospital. They moved slowly and carefully, making sure not to hurt the wounded people they carried. "How many wounded do you have?" Amanda asked Captain Morrison. 37, he said. 22 are civilians we rescued from a transport ship. The rest are my crew members who were hurt in the rescue." A woman in a torn uniform walked up to them. She had dark hair and kind eyes, and she was carrying a medical bag. "I'm Lieutenant Commander Rachel Stone, the ship's medical officer," she said to Amanda. "I've done what I can for the wounded, but some of them need surgery that we can't do on our ship." Amanda looked at the stretchers being carried past. What happened to these people? Rachel's face became sad and angry. Pirates attacked a civilian transport ship. The transport was carrying families from 3 different planets. They were just trying to get to a safe place, but the pirates wanted to sell them as slaves. "We got a distress call," Captain Morrison added. "We were supposed to be going somewhere else, but we couldn't ignore people asking for help. When we got there, the pirates were already hurting the civilians." Amanda watched as more wounded people were brought in. There were humans, Zalari, Kreks, and even some Vorthan refugees. All of them were being treated with the same care by the human soldiers. She had never seen anything like it. "Why did you bring them here?" Amanda asked. "You could have taken them to a military hospital." Rachel shook her head. "The nearest military hospital is 5 days away. Some of these people don't have 5 days, and besides, military hospitals might not treat alien civilians very well. We heard that Beacon Station treats everyone the same." A young human soldier walked up to them. He was carrying a tiny Zalari baby who was crying. The soldier was making soft sounds and gently rocking the baby, trying to make her feel better. "Sergeant Tom Hayes," the soldier said, introducing himself to Amanda. "This little one is scared and hungry. Do you have any Zalari baby food?" Amanda was surprised. "You know about Zalari babies?" Tom smiled a little. "I spent 2 years on a Zalari planet. I learned their language and their customs. When you're trying to help people, it's important to understand what they need." Kelly, Amanda's assistant, came running up. "Dr. Foster, we need to get these people to the medical center right away. Some of them are in very bad shape." Amanda nodded and started giving orders. "Take the worst cases to Trauma Room 1. Put the children in the pediatric ward. Make sure someone who speaks their language stays with the alien patients." As the medical team started moving the wounded people, Amanda noticed something else. That surprised her. The human soldiers were not leaving. They were staying to help. Some of them were pushing stretchers, while others were helping to carry medical equipment. One soldier, a young woman with blonde hair, was kneeling next to a wounded Krex child. She was speaking to the child in the Krex language, telling him that he was going to be okay. The child's parents were not there, so the soldier was acting like his mother, holding his hand and keeping him calm. "That's Corporal Amy Rodriguez," Rachel told Amanda. "She's our explosives expert, but she's also good with children. She learned the Krex language so she could help their wounded soldiers in other battles." Amanda felt like her whole world was being turned upside down. Everything she had heard about humans was wrong. They were not cold monsters who cared only about winning wars. They were people who risked their lives to save strangers, who learned other languages so they could help better, who treated their enemies with the same kindness they showed their friends Dot in the trauma room. Amanda worked alongside Dr. Steve Parker, the ship's chief surgeon. He was a skilled doctor who knew a lot about treating different types of aliens. As they worked on a badly injured Zalari woman, Steve told Amanda about the rescue. The pirates had already hurt many of the civilians. "Before we got there," Steve said as he carefully cleaned a wound, "they were planning to sell the healthy ones and kill the rest. We had to fight hard to save them." "How many pirates were there?" Amanda asked. "About 50, Steve said. "We only had 30 soldiers, but we couldn't wait for backup." People were dying. Amanda was amazed. The humans had been outnumbered, but they had fought anyway because people needed help. They had risked their own lives to save strangers from species they were supposed to be enemies with. Over the next few hours, Amanda and her team worked with the human medical staff to treat all the wounded people. The humans were skilled doctors and nurses, and they worked as hard as anyone Amanda had ever seen. They never complained about being tired, and they never treated the alien patients differently from the human ones. As the day went on, Amanda began to see a different side of humanity. These were not the monsters from the scary stories. These were people who had chosen to be healers as well as warriors. They fought not because they liked violence, but because they wanted to protect innocent people. Captain Morrison found Amanda in the hallway between the trauma rooms. He looked even more tired than before, but also relieved. "Dr. Foster," he said, "I want to thank you for helping us. I know letting us dock was not an easy decision." Amanda looked at him with new understanding. "Captain Morrison, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "The stories we hear about humans in the galaxy ... They say you're cruel and heartless. They say you show no mercy to anyone. But what I've seen today is completely different. Why do people think such terrible things about you?" Captain Morrison was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Doctor, when you're fighting to protect innocent people, you can't afford to be weak. Our enemies see us as monsters because we never give up, never surrender, and never let them hurt the people we're trying to save. They call us heartless because we fight so hard. But the truth is, we fight hard because we have too much heart, not too little." Amanda looked around at the human soldiers who were still helping with the wounded. She saw Tom Hayes reading a story to some Zilari children who were scared. She saw Amy Rodriguez helping an elderly Crex man eat his dinner. She saw Dr. Steve Parker teaching one of her nurses a new surgical technique. For the first time, Amanda began to understand the truth about humans. They were feared across the galaxy, but not because they were evil. They were feared because they were willing to do whatever it took to protect innocent people, even if it meant the whole galaxy would hate them for it. 3 days had passed since the human warship docked at Beacon Station. Amanda had expected the humans to drop off their wounded and leave quickly, but they stayed. Every day she saw more things that made her question everything she thought. She knew about humanity. The wounded were getting better, but the healing was about more than just fixing injuries. Amanda watched as the human soldiers spent time with all the patients, not just their own people. They brought small gifts, told stories, and helped with daily care. It was like they had become part of the station's medical team. Sergeant Tom Hayes had become especially close to the Zilari children. Every morning, he would sit with them and read stories in their language. The children, who had been afraid of everything when they arrived, now smiled and laughed when they saw him coming. Their parents, who had been taught to fear humans above all else, began to relax and trust. One morning, Amanda found Tom in the children's ward, helping a young Zilari girl named Kira with her breakfast. Kira had lost her parents in the pirate attack, and she had not spoken since arriving at the station. But now she was quietly talking to Tom in the Zilari language. "How did you learn to speak Zilari so well?" Amanda asked Tom. Tom smiled as he helped Kira with her food. "I was stationed on Zilari Prime for 2 years. At first, I was just there as a soldier, but I got to know the people. I learned that they love stories and music. They have beautiful families and care deeply about their children. When you live with people, you learn they're not so different from you." "But weren't you enemies?" Amanda asked. Tom's face became serious. "Our governments were fighting, yes. But the regular people, the families and children and workers, they just wanted to live their lives in peace. I couldn't be enemies with people like that." Amanda watched as Kira reached up and hugged Tom. The little girl had lost everything, but this human soldier was helping her feel safe again. It was hard to believe that Tom was part of the same military that the galaxy feared so much. In another part of the station, Corporal Amy Rodriguez was working with some of the Krex patients. The Krex were a warrior species, and they respected strength above all else. But Amy had earned their respect in a different way. She had learned their customs and showed them honor in their own tradition. Amanda found Amy in the rehabilitation center, helping an elderly Krex named Thoric learn to walk again. His leg had been badly hurt in the pirate attack, and he was frustrated with his slow progress. "I was a warrior once," Thoric said in his clicking language. "Now I am weak and useless." Amy knelt down beside him. "Being hurt doesn't make you weak," she said in perfect Krex. "You survived when others didn't. You protected your family during the attack. That takes more strength than walking." Thoric looked at her with surprise. "You speak the old warrior dialect. How do you know these words?" Amy smiled. "I spent time with Krex prisoners of war. At first, they wouldn't talk to me at all. But slowly, I learned that they were just soldiers like me, trying to do their duty. They taught me about honor and courage in your culture." "You treated prisoners?" "Well," Thoric asked, "we treated them with respect," Amy said. "They were warriors who had fought bravely. That deserved honor, even if we were on different sides." This conversation was heard by other Krex patients, and soon they were all talking about it. They had been told that humans were dishonorable fighters who showed no respect for their enemies. But Amy's words and actions proved otherwise, not Dr. Steve. Parker continued to amaze Amanda with his medical knowledge. He knew how to treat a dozen different alien species, and he was always willing to teach what he knew to Amanda's staff. During a surgery on a Vorthan patient, Amanda asked him how he had learned so much about alien medicine. "When you're a military doctor," Steve explained as he carefully worked on the patient's unusual heart, "you see all kinds of injuries on all kinds of species. But you also see that everyone wants the same things: to live, to be with their families, to not be in pain. It doesn't matter if they have blue skin, or 4 arms, or breathe different air. Pain is pain, and healing is healing." Amanda watched Steve's gentle hands as he worked. "But don't you ever get tired of treating the same people? You might have to. Fight against tomorrow?" Steve was quiet for a moment. "Dr. Foster, I became a doctor before I became a soldier. My job is to save lives, not take them. When someone is hurt and bleeding on my table, I don't see an enemy. I see a patient who needs help." The most surprising thing was how the wounded aliens were responding to the humans. The Zalari civilians, who had been terrified when they arrived, were now chatting with human soldiers and asking them about Earth. The Krex warriors, who had been suspicious and angry, were now treating the humans with respect and calling them honorable fighters. Even the Vorthan refugees, who came from a species that had never fought humans but had heard all the scary stories, were beginning to see the truth. They watched as humans cared for their wounded, played with their children, and helped them. Contact their families to let them know they were safe. One evening, Amanda found Captain Morrison in the station's observation deck, looking out at the stars. He looked tired but peaceful. "Captain," Amanda said, joining him at the window, "can I ask you something that's been bothering me?" "Of course, Doctor." "If humans are really like this, if you're really protectors and healers, why does the galaxy fear you so much? Why do people tell such terrible stories about humanity?" Captain Morrison was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Doctor, imagine you're a bully picking on a smaller kid. Then someone bigger and stronger comes along and tells you to stop. If you keep bullying, that person will fight you to protect the smaller kid. Now, are you going to tell people that the person who stopped you is a protector? Or are you going to tell them he's a violent monster?" Amanda thought about this. "You're saying that the people who fear humans are the ones who are doing bad things?" "Not always," Morrison said. "Sometimes good people get caught in the middle of fights. But yes, most of the scary stories about humans come from pirates, slavers, and others who hurt innocent people. When we stop them, they don't usually talk about how they were hurting others. They just talk about how mean and scary the humans were. But what about the wars? The big battles that everyone talks about? Morrison's face became sad. Those happen when talking doesn't work anymore. When someone is hurting millions of people, and they won't stop no matter what we say, then we have to make them stop. We don't like war, Doctor. We hate it. But we hate seeing innocent people suffer even more. Amanda looked out at the stars and thought about everything she had seen over the past 3 days. She had seen humans risk their lives to save strangers. She had seen them treat their enemies with kindness and respect. She had seen them care for children who were not their own and speak languages they had learned just to help better. Captain Morrison, she said finally, I think I understand now. The galaxy fears humans not because you're cruel, but because you're the opposite. You're the ones who will stand up to cruelty, no matter how dangerous it is. Morrison nodded. We're not perfect, Doctor. We make mistakes, and sometimes good people get hurt because of our actions. But we try to do what's right, even when it's hard, even when it makes people afraid of us. That night, Amanda couldn't sleep. She walked through the medical wards, checking on patients. In the children's ward, she found Tom Hayes sleeping in a chair next to Kira's bed. The little Zilari girl was having nightmares, and Tom had stayed with her so she wouldn't be afraid. In the Crex ward, she found Amy Rodriguez helping Thorak write a letter to his family. The old warrior wanted to tell them he was safe, but he couldn't hold a pen with his injured hands. Amy was writing his words for him, making sure to use the formal language that Crex families expected. In the main medical bay, she found Dr. Steve Parker still working, even though his shift had ended hours ago. He was treating a Vorthan patient who had developed complications. Steve could have left the case to Amanda's staff, but he wanted to make sure the patient got the best possible care. Amanda realized that she was seeing the true nature of humanity. These were not the monsters from the scary stories. These were people who had chosen to be guardians of the innocent, even if it meant the whole galaxy would fear and hate them. They were willing to be seen as monsters if it meant protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. As she walked back to her quarters, Amanda made a decision. She would tell people the truth of what she had seen. She would make sure the galaxy knew that humans were not the cruel monsters they had been told about. They were something much more important. They were the people who stood between the innocent and those who would harm them. The most feared warriors in the galaxy were also its greatest protectors. And tomorrow, Amanda would start telling everyone who would listen. On the 4th day, Amanda decided she needed to understand more about humanity's way of fighting. She had seen how gentle and caring the humans were with the wounded, but she still wondered about the battles that made them so feared across the galaxy. She found Captain Morrison in the station's small library, reading a book about Zilari culture. When he saw her, he closed the book and gave her his full attention. Captain, Amanda said, sitting down across from him, I've seen how your people treat the wounded and the innocent, but I still don't understand the fighting. Help me understand why humans are so feared in battle. Morrison looked thoughtful. Doctor, have you ever had to make a choice between letting someone hurt an innocent person or stopping them with violence? Amanda thought about this. Not really. I'm a doctor, not a soldier. Well, imagine a man is hurting a child, then the only way to stop him is to fight him. Would you fight? Of course I would. Now imagine that man has friends who will also try to hurt the child. Would you fight them too? Yes. And if those friends had weapons and were willing to kill you to keep hurting the child? Amanda was beginning to understand. I would fight as hard as I could to stop them. Morrison nodded. That's what humans do, Doctor. But we don't just fight hard. We fight smart. We fight to end the violence as quickly as possible, because every second the fighting continues, more innocent people get hurt. Lieutenant Colonel Gary Wilson, the ship's tactical officer, walked into the library. He was a big man with scars on his arms and a serious face. Morrison waved him over. "Gary, Dr. Foster wants to understand why humans are feared in battle. Can you explain it better than I can?" Gary sat down and was quiet for a moment. "Doctor, may I ask you something first?" "Of course. When you perform surgery, do you cut slowly and carefully, or do you cut quickly and precisely?" Amanda was surprised by the question. "Quickly and precisely. The longer the surgery takes, the more dangerous it is for the patient." "That's exactly how humans fight," Gary said. "We don't fight because we like violence. We fight because sometimes it's the only way to stop worse violence. And when we fight, we do it fast and completely, because the longer a war goes on, the more innocent people die." Gary pulled out a small tablet and showed Amanda some pictures. "This is from a battle 6 months ago. Pirates had taken over a mining colony and were using the workers as slaves. The local government asked us to help. The pictures showed a mining station in space. Amanda could see that it was damaged and that there were many ships around it. The pirates had 300 fighters and lots of weapons," Gary continued. "The mining colony had 5,000 workers, including many families with children. We could have fought a long, careful battle, but every day we waited, more workers would die. What did you do?" "We attacked fast and hard. We used our best weapons and our best tactics. The battle was over in 4 hours. We captured most of the pirates, and only 12 workers were hurt. If we had fought slowly and carefully, hundreds of workers might have died." Amanda looked at the pictures again. "But the pirates who survived, they probably told stories about how cruel and ruthless you were." "Exactly," Gary said. "They didn't tell people about the workers we saved. They told people about how we destroyed their ships and captured their fighters. They made us sound like monsters because we beat them so completely." Morrison added, "Doctor, humans learned long ago that being feared can actually save lives. If pirates and slavers think humans are unstoppable monsters, they might surrender without fighting. If they surrender, no one has to die at all." Amanda was beginning to see a bigger picture. "So the reputation for being ruthless is actually a tool to prevent violence?" "Sometimes," Morrison said, "but not always. Sometimes we have to fight people who won't surrender, no matter how scared they are. And sometimes good people get caught in the middle and get hurt. Those are the times that keep us awake at night." Dr. Steve Parker joined them in the library. He had been listening to the conversation from the doorway. "Dr. Foster," Steve said, "can I tell you about something that happened to me during the Crex-Border War?" Amanda nodded. "I was treating wounded soldiers from both sides after a big battle. A young Crex warrior had been badly hurt, and he was dying. I worked for hours to save him, using all my skills and knowledge. Finally, I managed to stabilize him." Steve sat down and continued. "When the Crex soldier woke up, he was angry. He said I should have let him die with honor instead of saving him. He said humans were dishonorable for keeping enemies alive." "What did you tell him?" "I told him that I didn't see him as an enemy. I saw him as a young person who deserved to live. I told him that honor wasn't about dying in battle. Honor was about protecting others and helping them when they needed it." "Did he understand?" Steve smiled a little. "Not at first. But after a few days, he started asking questions about human medicine. He wanted to know why we bothered to save our enemies. I explained that we didn't fight because we hated other species. We fought because we believed everyone deserved to be safe and free." Gary pulled up another picture on his tablet. "This is that same Crex warrior now. His name is Korath. After he recovered, he went back to his people and told them what he had learned about humans. He became a voice for peace between our species. Amanda looked at the picture. It showed the Krex warriors standing with some human soldiers. They were all smiling and looked like friends. "So sometimes the people you fight become your allies?" Amanda asked. "More often than you might think," Morrison said. "When people see that we're not actually monsters, when they understand that we fight to protect the innocent, many of them change their minds about humanity." Dr. Nancy Brooks, the ship's psychologist, walked into the library. She was a small woman with kind eyes, and she had been working with some of the traumatized patients. "I'm sorry to interrupt," Nancy said, "but I thought Dr. Foster might want to hear about my conversation with the Vorthan refugees." Amanda was interested. The Vorthans were a peaceful species that had never fought humans directly, but they had heard all the scary stories. "What did they say?" Amanda asked. Nancy sat down with them. At first, they were terrified of our crew. They had been told that humans were violent and unpredictable. But after watching us care for their wounded and help their families, they started asking questions. What kind of questions? They wanted to know why we had risked our lives to save them. They couldn't understand why we would fight pirates to protect strangers. In their culture, people usually only help their own families and close friends. Nancy continued, "I explained that humans believe all innocent people deserve protection, not just our own species. I told them that we see ourselves as guardians of those who can't protect themselves." How did they react? They were amazed. They said that in all their history, they had never heard of a species that would fight to protect strangers. They called it the most beautiful and terrifying thing they had ever encountered. Amanda thought about this. Beautiful and terrifying. That's an interesting way to describe humanity. Morrison nodded. It's actually very accurate. What we do can be beautiful because we're protecting innocent people, but it can also be terrifying because we're willing to do whatever it takes to succeed. Gary added, "Doctor, the truth is that humans carry a heavy burden. We've made ourselves the guardians of the innocent, but that means we have to make hard choices. We have to be willing to fight, to kill, and to die for people we've never met. And we have to be willing to let the galaxy fear us, if that's what it takes to keep innocent people safe." Amanda looked around at these humans who had been so kind to her patients. Captain Morrison, who had learned about alien cultures so he could understand the people he protected. Gary Wilson, who planned battles to save as many lives as possible. Dr. Steve Parker, who treated enemies with the same care he gave to friends. Dr. Nancy Brooks, who helped traumatized people heal from their experiences. "I think I understand now," Amanda said. "The galaxy fears humans not because you're evil, but because you're the opposite of evil. You're the ones who will stand up to evil, no matter what it costs you." Morrison smiled sadly. "That's the choice we made as a species, Doctor. We decided that we would rather be feared and hated than let innocent people suffer. We would rather be called monsters than allow real monsters to hurt others." "But it's not fair," Amanda said. "The galaxy should understand what you're really doing." Nancy shook her head. "Doctor, most people don't want to understand. It's easier to believe that humans are monsters and to accept that sometimes violence is necessary to stop worse violence. It's easier to hate us than to thank us." "But some people do understand," Steve added. "The people we save, they know the truth. The families we protect, they understand what we really are. And that's enough for us." Amanda realized that she had been given a great gift. She had seen the true nature of humanity, and now she had a responsibility to share that truth with others. The galaxy needed to know that the most feared warriors in space were also its greatest protectors. "Thank you for helping me understand," Amanda said. "I promise you that I'll tell people the truth about humanity. I'll make sure they know that you're not the monsters from the scary stories." Morrison stood up and shook her hand. Thank you, Doctor. But remember, some P.O. The fifth day brought news that would change everything. Amanda was checking on her patients when Kelly rushed into the medical bay with an excited look on her face. Dr. Foster, you need to see this, Kelly said, holding up a communication tablet. We're getting messages from all over the galaxy. Amanda took the tablet and read the messages. They were from other medical stations, news reporters, and even government officials. Word about what had happened at Beacon Station was spreading quickly across the galaxy. The first message was from Dr. Marcus Webb at Central Medical Station. Amanda, we heard about the humans who brought wounded civilians to your station. Is it true that they stayed to help care for alien patients? Please tell us more. Another message was from a Zelari news reporter named Zira Moonwhisper. Dr. Foster, our sources say that human soldiers rescued Zelari civilians and brought them to your station for treatment. We would like to interview you about this story. There were dozens of messages, all asking the same kinds of questions. People across the galaxy had heard about humans showing kindness to their supposed enemies, and they wanted to know if the stories were true. Amanda found Captain Morrison in the station's main corridor. He was talking with some of his crew members, and they all looked concerned. Captain, Amanda said, I think you should see these messages. Morrison read through the communications with a worried expression. Doctor, this could be a problem for you. Not everyone will be happy to hear good things about humans. Amanda was confused. What do you mean? Lieutenant Colonel Gary Wilson stepped forward. Dr. Foster, there are people in the galaxy who benefit from the fear of humanity. Pirates and slavers, for example. If people stop being afraid of humans, those criminals might become bolder. There are also governments that use fear of humans to control their people, added Dr. Nancy Brooks. They tell their citizens that humans are monsters, and then they say only the government can protect them from the human threat. Amanda hadn't thought about this. So telling the truth about humans might make some people angry. Very angry. Morrison said, Doctor, we want people to know the truth about us, but we don't want you to get in trouble because of it. Before Amanda could respond, her communication system started beeping again. This time, it was an incoming call from someone important. The screen showed the seal of the Galactic Medical Council. Dr. Foster, said a stern voice. This is Director Chun of the Galactic Medical Council. We need to speak with you immediately about the humans currently at your station. Amanda accepted the call. On the screen appeared an older man with gray hair and an unfriendly expression. Behind him were several other council members from different species. Dr. Foster, Director Chun said, we have received disturbing reports that you have allowed a human warship to dock at your station. Is this true? Yes, Director, Amanda said calmly. They brought wounded civilians who needed medical care. You were foolish to trust them, said a Vorthan council member. Humans are dangerous and unpredictable. They could have taken over your station or hurt your patients. Amanda felt angry. Director Chun, the humans have been nothing but helpful. They've worked alongside my staff to care for wounded civilians from multiple species. They've shown more compassion than many of our own medical teams. The council members looked shocked. One of them, a Zelari woman, spoke up. Dr. Foster, you must be mistaken. Humans don't care about alien civilians. They only care about winning wars. That's not true, Amanda said firmly. I've seen them reading to frightened children, helping. Elderly patients eat and learning alien languages so they can communicate better with wounded people. These humans risked their lives to save civilians from pirates. Director Chun's face became red with anger. Dr. Foster, you are clearly suffering from some kind of psychological manipulation. Humans are known for their ability to trick people into trusting them. We are ordering you to refuse any further contact with humans. Amanda looked at the screen and made a decision that would change her life. Director Chun, I respectfully refuse." That order. A silence on the communication channel was complete. No one had ever refused a direct order from the Galactic Medical Council before. "Dr. Foster," Director Chun said slowly, "if you continue to associate with humans, we will have no choice but to remove you as head of Beacon Station." Amanda thought about everything she had seen over the past 5 days. She thought about Tom Hayes reading stories to Zalari children, about Amy Rodriguez helping Krex warriors with their rehabilitation, about Dr. Steve Parker teaching her staff new medical techniques, about Captain Morrison and his crew risking their lives to save strangers. "Director Chun," Amanda said, "if caring for wounded people and learning the truth about other species is wrong, then I don't want to be part of an organization that calls itself medical." She ended the communication call. Kelly, who had been listening, looked worried. "Dr. Foster, what are you going to do now? If the Medical Council removes you, what will happen to Beacon Station?" Amanda was about to answer when Captain Morrison walked up to them. He had heard the entire conversation. "Dr. Foster," Morrison said, "my crew and I have been talking. We'd like to make you an offer." "What kind of offer?" "We want to help you turn Beacon Station into something new. Not just a medical station, but a place where different species can come to learn the truth about each other. A place where the fear and hatred that divide the galaxy can be replaced with understanding." Gary Wilson joined them. "Doctor, we've been fighting wars for years, but we've realized that winning battles doesn't really solve problems. We need to change how species think about each other." Dr. Steve Parker nodded. "We could bring other human medical ships here. We could work with doctors from all species to share medical knowledge and techniques. We could show the galaxy that cooperation is better than conflict." Amanda felt excited about the possibility. But what about the Medical Council? What about the governments that want people to fear humans? "Let them complain," said Dr. Nancy Brooks. "Doctor, you've seen the truth about humanity. Do you think that truth is worth fighting for?" Amanda looked around at the humans who had become her friends over the past 5 days. She thought about little Kira, the Zalari girl who now smiled and laughed with Tom Hayes. She thought about Thorak, the Krex warrior who had learned to respect human honor. She thought about the Vorthan refugees who now understood that humans were protectors, not monsters. "Yes," Amanda said, "the truth is always worth fighting for." Over the next few weeks, Amanda's decision proved to be the right one. News about Beacon Station spread across the galaxy, and many people wanted to see for themselves if the stories about human kindness were true. Other medical ships began arriving at the station, not just human ships, but vessels from species that had been enemies for years. Doctors and nurses from different worlds worked together, sharing knowledge and learning from each other. The Zalari children, who had been rescued by the humans, became ambassadors for their species. They told other Zalari about the kind humans who had saved them and cared for them. Slowly, the Zalari government began to change its policies toward humanity. The Krex warriors who had been treated at Beacon Station returned to their homeworld with stories of human honor and courage. They convinced other Krex that humans were worthy of respect, not just fear. Even some pirates and criminals began to change their behavior. They had heard that humans would show mercy to those who surrendered peacefully, but would be ruthless to those who continued to hurt innocent people. Captain Morrison and his crew stayed at Beacon Station for several more weeks, helping to establish the new cooperation programs. When they finally had to leave for their next mission, the goodbye was emotional for everyone. "Dr. Foster," Morrison said as he prepared to board his ship, "you've done something amazing here. You've started to heal the fear and hatred that has divided the galaxy for so long." "I couldn't have done it without you and your crew," Amanda replied. "You showed me what humanity really is." Tom Hayes, who was saying goodbye to Kira and the other Zalari children, had tears in his eyes. Doctor, take care of these kids. They're going to grow up in a galaxy where humans and Zalari can be friends instead of enemies. Amy Rodriguez hugged Thoric, the old Krex warrior. Remember what I taught you about honor, she said. True strength comes from protecting others, not from winning battles. Dr. Steve Parker left behind several medical textbooks that he had written about treating different alien species. These should help your staff, he told Amanda. And remember, healing is healing, no matter what species you're treating. Dr. Nancy Brooks gave Amanda a communication device. If you ever need help dealing with traumatized patients, call me. We're all in this together now. As the human warship undocked from Beacon Station, Amanda watched from the observation deck. The ship that had once seemed so frightening now looked like a symbol of hope. She knew that Captain Morrison and his crew would continue their mission of protecting the innocent, but now they would do it knowing that at least some people understood their true nature. In the months that followed, Beacon Station became the most famous medical facility in the galaxy. It was a place where former enemies worked together, where children from different species played together, and where the truth Abo